Okay. For those of you who do not live in the United States, first of all, congratulations. Really, for the first time in my life, wishing that I was you right now. Oh, you live in Georgia, not the state, but the country. Oh man, what a delight. You must have some frigid winters over there. I don't know, I assume. You're near Russia. I guess you're to the south of it, but over here we have something called checks and balances. It's the idea that, and by the way, this hasn't been a real thing for a long time. This system has pretty much only been held up via gentlemen's agreements. Basically, as soon as you get enough people in power who are openly hostile to the concept of checks and balances, it all falls apart. We don't really have any kind of like militant top-down enforcement of it. You know, you can just kind of skirt the rules if you want to. So the rules are being skirted. The drama thus far is as follows. So Trump, in an unprecedented fashion, invoked the Alien Enemies Act against a country that we're not even at war with. He did so in part to expedite the deportation of a small group of Venezuelan, allegedly Tren de Aragua members, but then went on to use it as a pretext for deporting over 100 people to a gulag, a work camp in El Salvador, where they are right now, at this moment, being tortured. Just think about that. Because the Alien Enemies Act allows for the expulsion of alleged members of Tren de Aragua, in this case, without due process, we don't know whether or not they were actually members of Tren de Aragua. The argument from the administration, bro, trust us. They won't even tell us their names. Judge Boasberg, an Obama-appointed judge, I know woke, who was presiding over a case relating to a group of alleged Tren de Aragua members who were being set up for deportation, issued an immediate halt to the removal of those so-called Tren de Aragua members. But when he issued that order, some of the planes were already in the air, so he ordered them turned around. And I'll just read this now. Boasberg says, this was a hearing that was held yesterday. By the way, it was apparently like pulling nails trying to get the Trump administration to even respond to this hearing. The Trump administration said they shouldn't have to participate in this hearing because the call was ludicrous and the judge didn't have the authority to order those planes turned around. The judge insisted they come over. The Trump administration said they would not be providing any information that could compromise national security, i.e. any information whatsoever, because they're trying to be as quiet about it as possible. Boasberg said, no, you're coming in anyway. And right now, the Trump administration as a whole has effectively been arguing that federal judges should not have the authority to stop the president. So we essentially no longer have checks and balances. That's not an exaggeration. That's straightforwardly what's happening right now. They have the explicit arguments coming in from the president, from Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, from the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Grassley, and from the White House policy, what's his name? The little egg Nazi, Stephen Miller. That's right. All of whom are essentially saying, wow, it really is crazy that a federal judge has the authority to stop the president's orders. J.D. Vance is the one with the lollipop, yes? Yes, that is correct. So here's a excerpt from the hearing which was held yesterday. Boasberg, Judge Boasberg, says, so when I said, Mr. Ensign, you should inform your clients immediately, however that's accomplished, whether it means turning around a plane, etc., you need to make sure it is complied with immediately. You're telling me your first argument is when I said those things, because it wasn't in a minute order, you didn't have to comply. That's your argument? You're telling me that very clear point. You're saying that you felt you could disregard it because it wasn't in the written order. That's your first argument. And the U.S. Administration's representative said, I am stating what the position of the United States is. So, unambiguously, the argument put forward by the Trump administration was, we didn't have to follow your order because it wasn't written down. It was a verbal order. That was their first argument. For any of you who are even remotely familiar with how this works, we basically don't have checks and balances now. This is like this is a fuck you from the administration. This is the administration saying essentially we'll do what we want, like unambiguously, just like straightforward. Yeah, we don't have to. The position of the United States is that fuck you, basically. The actual details of the hearing are largely irrelevant because a few things are going to be true. No matter what, like nothing changes these basic facts. One is those people sent to El Salvador are probably not coming back. We might never know their names. ICE has admitted that a lot of them didn't commit crimes. They admitted that. That's what they admitted. For two, nothing takes away from the fact that the Trump administration's response to the judge was essentially, we don't have to listen to you because f*** you. Right? Like, there's no actual legal argument here. We're not talking about legality. The implicit answer here, the implicit dynamic, the response to the engagement here has nothing to do with law and everything to do with the unitary executive theory. The idea that the president essentially answers to nobody. That's what we're getting at. It's pretty terrifying. Now, following all of that, we have a development. John Roberts, the court's most spineless Republican, in a rare statement, hits back after Trump calls for impeaching judges. So yes, the right has been calling for the impeachment, removal, arrest, etc. of Boasberg. John Roberts is a Republican. He is evil, but he's one of those like hoity-toity neocon Republicans, you know, the too big for their britches kind, who don't feel comfortable admitting that they're just evil and have no principles beyond that. John Roberts does occasionally side with the liberal end of the court, usually when you have Supreme Court cases where the question is basically something like, do you think clubbing seals is fun? Smiley-faced wink. And then Roberts will be like, and I will be, I do not see, my 50,000 years of constitutional review have not led me to a conclusive answer on that. Basically what I'm saying is I don't like him, but he's not Clarence Thomas. But anyway, I'm not doing a good bit. I'm also not doing a very good impression. Chief Justice John Roberts is pushing back against Trump and his allies' calls to impeach judges who have ruled against the administration. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose, Roberts said Tuesday in a rare and brief statement issued just hours after Trump publicly joined demands by his supporters to remove judges he called crooked. It's getting pretty bad out there, man. Right now, the Trump administration is just like ignoring judge's orders. Appellate. Oh, you mad at how a white man pronounces it? Well, why don't you pronounce it the cool way then, huh? Like, I don't deal with enough in my day-to-day. Like, life isn't hard enough right now. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yakubian pronunciation. I'm trying my best out here, okay? Life is not going well. Trump has called for the impeachment of the federal judge who ordered a 2-week halt to his efforts to remove Venezuelan migrants, using extraordinary war powers that haven't been invoked for decades. Also, we're not at war right now. So that's pretty crazy. Trump also suggested that many of the judges who have ruled against him in other cases should be impeached as well. A significant incursion on the judiciary. Let me see how people are responding to the statement by Justice Roberts. This is all happening pretty rapidly, I would say. CNN, what do you have?
Big news out of the Supreme
Trustworthy
Court.
old
Chief
CNN.
Justice of the United States of America just issued a rare statement on President Trump's call to impeach the judge in his Alien Enemies Act case. I want to go straight to Paula Reed. Paula, wow, this is a very big deal.
This is a huge deal. Here you have Chief Justice John Roberts appearing to push back on statements President Trump made earlier today, suggesting that a judge, James Boasberg, who of course temporarily blocked deportations by the Trump administration, or at least tried to, should be impeached. And here the Chief Justice writes, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Now, this is, of course, a very short statement, but it says so much, Dana, because earlier today, in a Truth Social post, President Trump sort of went on a tangent about how angry he was at this judge and saying this judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. And this comes just several days after Boasberg tried to temporarily block some deportations by the Trump administration.
In case you're wondering how Republicans have been acting about the standoff between Boasberg and the Trump administration, here is Fox on that subject.
So a federal judge temporarily blocking President Trump's executive order to fast-track the deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members out of the U.S.
Matt Finn is in West Palm Beach, and he joins us now with the latest. Matt, this seems unbelievable. Break it down for us. Explain to us why we want Today in Nicaragua, back in the United States.
So let's just see how many instances in this 6-minute video, if we make it that far, we can find of people on Fox News being coached to be openly anti-American. Like just anti-constitutional, like just very flat across the board. Like this should not, like we shouldn't have a constitutionally protected set of rights.
Yeah, so this judge ordered planes full of suspected terrorists to turn around to the United States. President Trump's proclamation of this seldom used Alien Enemies Act of 1796 says all Venezuelan citizens 14 years or older who are suspected Tren de Aragua gang members
this guy looks
cannot
like a
become
sociopath.
Citizens of the United States. But yesterday, the ACLU filed a lawsuit claiming the Alien Enemies Act could be used to deport any Venezuelan in the U.S., regardless of whether they are affiliated with TDA. So
which the Trump administration immediately proved by deporting a bunch of Venezuelans without proving that they were criminals, and ICE admitted that many of them had committed no crimes. So thank you, ACLU.
U.S. District Judge James Boasberg of the D.C. Circuit agreed with the ACLU and went against President Trump, granting a temporary restraining order preventing the deportation of 5 Venezuelans yesterday who were already in U.S. custody. It is unclear right now if the 2 planes that were ordered returned by the judge have done so. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi responding, writing, tonight a D.C. trial judge supported Tren de Aragua
Susported? Ooh.
Terrorists over the safety of Americans. This order disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power, and it puts the public and law enforcement at risk.
So that's anti-constitutional. The idea that a judge can't issue a hold on this deportation is a deliberate ignoring of the balance of powers and the process of checks and balances. She is, of course, the head of the Department of Justice, so kind of terrifying coming from her.
The Department of Justice is undeterred in its efforts to work with the White House and Department of Homeland Security and all of our partners to stop this invasion and make America safe again. Now, as the number of illegal migrant crossings and illegal gotaways continues to drastically plunge under the Trump administration, DHS Secretary Chris...
Aren't all border crossings going down right now? Like including people legally entering the country, not like migrants or refugees, but just visitors, tourists, just anyone? Like everything's going down because everyone can see that they're disappearing people at the borders for no reason. This country's turning into a hellhole very rapidly.
Noam posted this video online showing gates at a border wall closing behind her.
Wow.
This is an announcement to the entire world. America's borders are closed if you want to come here illegally.
Wow.
We only want people in our country who love America and want to follow our laws.
That is a slow door.
And on the topic of TDA, I investigated an individual migrant in Chicago over the past couple of weeks. The story's up on foxnews.com right now. He was ordered deported under the Biden administration in 2022, found his way to Chicago, and guys, was arrested in the city of Chicago 4 times. Back to you.
Wow.
That's great.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
Truly amazing. The idea that that you would have a rogue judge in D.C.
Anti-constitutional, not a rogue judge at all.
Undermining the entire authority of the judicial branch.
That's not undermining the judicial branch. That is the judicial branch exercising its authority. I understand that in like 5 years in America, our schools will be teaching people that there was only ever one president and it was Donald Trump. Like, I understand the direction that this is going in. I know that it, like people who are being born today will be educated on how Trump founded the country and how like there was never a judicial or legislative branch. I understand where this is going. So if I'm coming across a little bit like repetitive in my insistence that very basic constitutionally protected rights are a thing, I apologize. I grew up learning about them. I would like to exercise this knowledge while it is still applicable, or at least having been recently applicable.
By getting into a fight like this with the President of the United States, who absolutely has executive authority to do what he's doing.
He does, and the judge has the authority to put a hold on it. That's the checks and balances.
I think you could see long-term damage done to undermining the judicial branch's authority. It's absolutely amazing.
Just the Orwellian nightmare, like just the insane cognitive dissonance, or I guess dishonesty, of arguing that what the judge is doing is undermining the legitimacy of judicial authority, while arguing that judges don't have the authority to overwrite what Trump is doing. Just absolutely nightmarish.
Imagine being a donor to the ACLU. Is this really what you want your money to go towards?
Yes. Not sending people to a gulag who haven't committed any crimes with no due process. Yeah, that's like I feel that's like the most ACLU thing possible. We are right now living through the greatest and fastest undermining of American constitutional rights in history by a long shot. Nothing else even comes close. There is no point, no prior president, nothing else that comes even close. So yeah, I would say that the ACLU, this is probably like the main thing people have been donating for.
To making sure that Tren de Aragua gang members. Now, listen, if he's saying, well, the judge is saying maybe this law can be used.
It's really important to see stuff like this too, because everyone needs to be paying attention that everyone on the right across the board, all of them are now anti-due process. Like, it's not even a Tren de Aragua thing. They are like, you can ask them a question. You can see it in the Twitter posts or in the interviews they're doing on Fox Business or whatever. They ask like explicitly, a reporter, can ask them, how do you feel about people who are uncomfortable with, no due process involved in, like, we don't even know if these are Tren de Aragua members. And they will just respond essentially like, F you. That's their answer.
To deport any Venezuelan who's here illegally, and we want them to go through some other process. That's fine, but it's very clear that the people who were on that plane were Tren de Aragua gang members.
Except they just weren't. Oh, you're right. I shouldn't paper over how insane the shit Trump says, because they sane wash him every time he truths anything. This was his post this morning. This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, was not elected president. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states. He didn't win 2,750 to 525 counties. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate, but fighting illegal immigration may have been the #1 reason for this historic victory. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers, in our country. Make America great again. So yeah, there you go. Why is he screaming? You can always tell when you're reading a Truth Social post that was actually written by Trump, because sometimes you get ones that are just whiffs, and then you get ones like this, Bro thinks he's the king. Well, he did say he was, so,
And he basically said, bring him back.
Right.
Bring him back to the States. That's crazy.
If I understand, Matt's report is 5.
Yeah.
5 people. You think they haven't properly vetted those 5 people to know they were already in custody? And the other thing, too, is if they bring them back,
then why can't they prove it in court? Why do they have to revoke habeas corpus?
they're still in custody. It's not like they're going to set them free. And it's just you're delaying the inevitable and cost.
That's the point. So wait, notice the contradiction in their talking points here, where the other two are implying that they want to bring Tren de Aragua members back to set them free. And then he's like, well, when they come back, they're still going to be in custody. They're not going to be set free. So what's the point? You need to get your messages straight, man. You need to get your messages straight. Yeah, delaying the inevitable. They don't believe in due process. They are authoritarians. Did you see the Riley Gaines tweet? Yeah, I saw the Riley Gaines tweet. It's important to be very clear. The people you see in this photo have not had any due process whatsoever, being uprooted from their lives and families in the U.S. and find themselves now in a CSOT prison in El Salvador. To which Riley Gaines says, you know who didn't have due process? Laken Riley, which I think is a great argument, you know? One person got murdered. We should suspend all civil rights to due process. I agree. That's a phenomenal argument. No Constitution anymore. A woman gets murdered? Well, no Constitution. Man, you got to think that Laken Riley's having a bad time up there in heaven watching the Fourth Reich be like built on her name, you know? I feel bad for her immortal spirit more now than I do for her actual personhood here on Earth, you know? If I was a Christian, I thought that she was watching us from the clouds above, and it's like, wow, you know? Do you think Laken Riley approves of the like Miami-Dade Laken Riley death camp? Now featuring like plastic straws in the concession stand outside. Like, I feel like you're kind of tainting her after the fact.
Yeah.
5 people. You think they haven't properly vetted those 5 people to know they were already in custody? And the other thing, too, is if they bring them back, they're still in custody. It's not like they're going to set them free. And it's just you're delaying the inevitable and costing us more money doing it to prove some point. I'm not sure. You know, we talk about judicial activism and lawfare. Shouldn't the judge, I mean, the Supreme Court generally, no matter if it's conservative or liberal, usually takes the stance of we don't want to pick it up until we absolutely have to. Right. We don't want to make this decision on behalf of the American people and the Congress and the president they've elected unless we absolutely have to. But I guess these lower court judges.
I'm sure it goes without saying, but like it's not an exaggeration. I hope you all understand that if they built death camps and killed lots of people at them, all of these arguments would be the same, and they would still apply with equal validity. They would say, like, well, why are you enemies of the state? Why are you all evil terrorists or whatever? Like, these people are ideologically indistinguishable from the worst people that you could imagine. And they're aware of that fact. They are paid handsomely to do these things. They're not going to stop here. It's not going to stop with Tren de Aragua. Nobody just stops with Tren de Aragua, okay?
Judges, I guess for them, it's a way to make their name, maybe to create a legacy or get in the news. I'm not sure what their motivations are.
But there's a lot of elitism involved in this. You guys remember very clearly when J.D. Vance was interviewed by, I think it was Martha Raddatz, if I'm correct, and they were talking about Tren de Aragua taking over apartment buildings and complexes in Colorado. And she said, listen, it's just a few apartment buildings. You know, if I said, they took over Bethesda.
Like, you hear yourself? He said something like his response.
Yeah, like,
Bethesda, the game studio?
Hear what you just said?
Can you hear yourself, Martha? Exactly. They took over her little rich enclave in D.C. She wouldn't feel that way about it. But since it's these working class...
It's literally like the same 3-door camera videos that they've been running on loop for a year now.
Apartments that you're seeing that right here. They don't care. Same for the ACLU, Charlie.
Yeah, and I think it's such an important point. It's why the Supreme Court has to step in and rein in rogue judges that do things like this, and they should do that.
Rogue judges, obviously not a rogue judge, et cetera, et cetera.
And as for the ACLU, it's amazing. And by the way, the entire judicial system, when you see things like this, you're like, wait, you're so concerned about the rights of illegals who are in our country illegally. It seems like you care more about them than you do actual citizens.
And these arguments are all verbatim what the Nazis used as well. You know, there were people concerned about the civil rights of, say, Jews, union organizers, communists, and socialists at the beginning of the Nazi regime before they were all completely liquidated. And these arguments were applied as well. Like, oh, you spare concern for the Jew, why not for the Aryan man? You're so concerned for what happens to them. Well, what about the blood of our nation? Like, it is the same. It is the same. How do we know they're illegal without a trial? They are aware of the fact that they're lying, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It does bother me. It does bother me that people see stuff like this and they're like, man, these guys are so stupid. No, they're not. I mean, they might be, but stupidity isn't the explainer for what we're seeing here. That's not why they're saying what they're saying, you know.
Who are like tax-paying legal citizens living in the country. Even immigrants.
Maybe the goal is to make them citizens and get their votes. I'm not sure what their goal is.
Yep.
Listen, you talked about if it were her little enclave in D.C. Georgetown even kicked me out of there for having a truck. Like they don't even let the metro there. Like you can't be poor and in Georgetown. Maybe if I were driving.
I don't think that's true. I think he's lying. What's this? Somebody link this clip.
Case.
Funny you should mention that. No, there is good reason that everybody is saying alleged members and suspected members, because these people, as Dana said, have not gotten their due process. And there's an immigration attorney who has been posting about her client who was supposed to show up in court on Thursday, has been disappeared since then, is allegedly on this plane, and this person
what was
is here.
What to show up in court for?
What he had a legitimate asylum claim. He had tattoos.
Legitimate asylum. It's not legitimate until a judge says it's legitimate.
Jesus Christ, man. Literally, like, it's not even the presumption of innocence until guilt now. It's the presumption of guilt until innocence. It's not even like a neutral position. Like so this woman's pretty we're on the Fox 5, so everyone here is pretty stupid. But like this isn't being done unknowingly. Like, there's an obvious logical contradiction here, which is like, wait, are we literally assuming that everyone's committing a crime until a judge says they're not? That's not how anything works on any level. That, you know, doesn't make any sense. You're not saying anything, but it's obviously she knows she's lying.
If you make it so that that person can't see a judge, then you're denying them their due process.
I don't know if I buy
what Trump is essentially
I don't know if I buy the Constitution, to be honest. I don't know if I buy it. Sorry.
saying is that the asylum system, as we know it, is done. That you can show up here and you're
one second.
fleeing from persecution in Venezuela, for instance, and you don't get your day in court. So if that's what it is moving forward, then just say that. Be honest.
But you know the asylum system has been gamed.
Sure,
it is completely exploited by criminals.
Most don't even show up, and most don't.
Thereby, even if we do believe that, thereby we should burn the Constitution.
You can throw whatever you want at the wall. I'm still going to finish what I'm saying.
That's just facts.
No, but it isn't facts. Because
Notice how much they want her to not finish her point. By the way, the Fox 5 ramble on quite a bit. Like they go on tangents. The Fox 5 don't have to keep it to a tight 5. Basically, they're talking over her because like this isn't allowed. This isn't what you're. You know, this isn't the line anymore.
They're illegal. They don't belong here in the first place. If they weren't invited.
Then just be honest and say it's not about getting criminals out. It's about getting everyone out who is here illegally. That we can pick up anyone, and that's not Whoopi Goldberg or Joy.
Well, it's not even about that too, because you have to prove that someone's here illegally, which involves them having due process. The proving part is what they want to get rid of. They want to get rid of having to prove it.
Obviously, they're not getting.
You do the worst first. That's what we're doing.
But why is this person?
See, one person.
No, but this is the people, as Dana said, have none.
See, one person.
No, but this is the first.
Ha! Just violated constitutional rights of one person. Ha 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 ha.
Why can't you just wait to let everyone get processed?
So you agree?
Yes, it's the first flight of deportations of this
I'm going to give you this, Jessica. I'm so glad you agree with what's being done. You just have a problem with how it's being done. So we're making progress.
Right. I would say this.
It's yeah. The Washington Post already reported that multiple innocent people were sent to El Salvador. Yeah, but doesn't matter. They're never getting out. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. This is insane. Well, what's important to understand is that I was right the whole time. This is always what the Republicans were. Sorry, I don't mean to literally make it like an I was always right kind of thing, but it's about understanding the underlying ideological incentives here, and it's so important to recognize that like what they're doing now is the same as what they were doing 4 years ago. They just have more power now. Like people, it can't be framed as a like, oh my God, look at how much worse they've gotten. Like they've gotten worse in the applicability of their evil, but the underlying arguments have been very clear for a long time ago, for a long time now. Everything after January 6th, that was the clear one. Because during Trump's first term, there was a lot more inconsistency, a lot more, well, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? But for after they rebounded with Trump after J6, it's been very clear what they wanted to go for. When they realized there were no consequences to failing an insurrectionary attempt, that's it, right? Like that's pretty much like the line there. And since then, everything's been pretty consistent, to be honest. They've been pretty consistent. They've been pretty on the ball. There hasn't been any backing down on their side. They've been going for what they can, and now we're seeing what happens when they control everything. Which is why I've been insistent on calling them fascist the entire time. I just know there are going to be some people who are like, oh, you're like a boy who cried wolf. You called them a fascist before, but now what about now? Now you've given you've removed the power from the word. And it was, well, no. They were the same back then. It was the same. They were the same people with the same arguments. Everything was preparing for this. You have to, the important part is to win before they take all the power. Ideally,